They ran the same test on everyone. Same questions, same pressure, same little boxes at the bottom of the page where somebody hoped a human life would finally become neat enough to measure. And most of the results came back exactly the way they expected. Fear here, rage there, avoidance, dependency, hypervigilance, grief, numbness, the usual wreckage. Then they got to yours. And somebody stopped talking, not because the score was high, because it wasn't where it was supposed to be. They checked the sheet, then the answer key, then the sheet again. One person thought the machine had glitched, another reran the numbers, same result, outlier, the only one. And that's when the room got uncomfortable. Because the test wasn't asking whether you survived.
Hey! Lay your palms flat on that tabletop! If you lift those palms off that turtle shell tabletop...
Everyone in that group survived, technically. The test was asking what survival turned you into, and apparently you became something the questions weren't built to recognize. Not fearless. You've been afraid, not unbreakable. You've broken before, not untouched. God, no, you were touched by it everywhere. That's what makes the result so strange. You carried the damage, you carried the memory. You carried the nights when the ceiling felt closer than the sky. And somehow, somewhere along the way, the thing that should have made you easier to predict did the opposite. It made you harder to fool. That's the part they couldn't score. The test had a box for anxiety, a box for anger, a box for avoidance. It did not have a box for someone who had been through hell and came out with better eyesight. So they ran it again. Same result. Let's start where the test started. Not with the dramatic part, with the ordinary part. The part nobody puts in movies because suffering is mostly boring when you're inside it. It was waking up already tired. It was getting through a normal day while half your mind was somewhere else. It was hearing your phone buzz and feeling your body react before you even looked at the screen. It was walking into rooms and knowing the temperature before anyone said a word. It was learning which footsteps meant trouble, which silence meant punishment, which smile had a blade behind it, which apology was only there to reset the cycle. You learned people by necessity. That is different from learning people for fun. You did not become observant because it sounded impressive. You became observant because missing the wrong detail once could cost you 3 days of peace. So you watched tone, you watched timing, you watched what people said when they were angry, and more importantly, what they pretended not to remember when they were calm. You watched who became kind only when they needed something, who became cruel only when there were witnesses, who apologized to end consequences instead of ending behavior. That was your education. No certificate, no graduation, just repetition. And repetition is a brutal teacher. At first it made you anxious, then it made you accurate. That transition is important because people who met you later saw the accuracy and called it suspicious. They saw you notice the lie before the sentence finished. They saw you go quiet when everybody else was still laughing. They saw you stop trusting someone everybody else adored. They thought you were cynical. They did not see the 100 times your optimism had been used as an unlocked door. The test didn't see that either, it just saw the result. You scored high where people expected collapse, low where people expected dependence, high where they expected confusion, and almost nothing where they expected the need to be believed.
Out of order. Who the hell do you think you're talking to? I've been around, you know.
That last one made them look twice, because after what happened to you, the model expected you to spend years explaining, defending, correcting, trying to make the room understand what the room had already decided not to understand. But something in you had burned past that. Not cleanly, not beautifully. You got there ugly. You got there exhausted. You got there after sending messages you wish you had never sent. After explaining yourself to people who were studying your explanation for weak spots. After trying to prove your heart to people who had already made money, status, comfort, or identity out of misunderstanding it. You did all that. Then one day you stopped. That is where your result separates. Most tests understand the person who fights. They understand the person who freezes. They understand the person who keeps returning. They even understand the person who runs. But what do you call someone who finally realizes the door is open and simply walks through it? Not in panic. Not for attention, not hoping to be chased, just done. There was no box for that, so the number looked wrong. They asked whether you still think about what happened. Of course you do. Memory is not a moral failure. They asked whether you still get angry. Sometimes. You are not made of marble. They asked whether you would go back if the people involved finally understood, and that's where the line went strange, because your answer was not rage. It was not longing. It was not revenge. It was almost nothing. No, just no. No speech attached, no fantasy where they beg, no courtroom, no perfect apology, no need to watch them suffer so the math feels balanced. Just no, and that kind of no is hard to measure because it doesn't look dramatic enough to be called strength. But it is the strength of a bridge that has already been removed. Nobody needs to guard it. Nobody needs to burn it. There is simply no road there anymore. That's darker than anger. Anger still keeps a connection alive. Hatred still checks the pulse. Revenge still imagines the other person's face. Indifference? Real indifference? That is a country with no border crossing. And you did not get there because you were above pain. You got there because pain finally taught you the price of staying emotionally available to people who treated your nervous system like public property. The test called that low attachment. The room called it unusual. You called it Tuesday. Because by the time people notice a change in you, you've usually been living inside it for months. That's another thing the test missed. Your transformation was not an event, it was erosion. Tiny pieces falling away. The need to be liked, then the need to be understood, then the need to win the argument, then the need to make sure everybody knew you were the good one. Piece by piece, gone. You didn't become colder, you became less negotiable. Those are not the same thing. Cold people feel nothing. You feel plenty. You just stopped giving every feeling voting rights. That's why your result looks strange. The test expected your pain to control the present. Instead, you use the past like weather radar. You see the storm. You don't marry it. You don't build your house inside it. You don't tell yourself every cloud is the same cloud.
There was a time I could see, and I have seen.
But you also don't stand in an open field pretending lightning is a mindset problem. You learn discernment. That word isn't sexy enough for a thumbnail, but it is probably the most expensive thing you own. Discernment, knowing the difference between discomfort and danger, between chemistry and chaos, between forgiveness and access, between someone making a mistake and someone showing you a pattern, between being alone and being abandoned, between peace and the silence people use to punish you. You paid for those distinctions with years. That's why someone else's opinion cannot buy them from you cheaply. They ask why you don't react the way you used to, because the old reactions were expensive. They ask why you don't explain, because explanation became a tax on your sanity. They ask why you leave sooner now, because you spent too many years leaving late. Simple, brutal, human. And still, the test kept looking for a diagnosis-shaped answer, something neat, something that would tell them what category you belong to. But every category broke somewhere. Too compassionate to call detached, too willing to leave to call dependent, too calm to call impulsive, too scarred to call naive, too open to beauty to call cynical, too aware of darkness to call innocent. What are you supposed to do with a person like that? You could call them contradictory. That would be easy, but contradiction is often just complexity seen by someone in a hurry. The same person can love deeply and leave permanently. The same person can forgive and never reopen the door. The same person can cry over what happened and still know they would choose the exit again. The same person can be soft with a child, ruthless with a boundary, gentle with a stranger, and unreachable to someone who spent years confusing kindness with permission. That is not inconsistency, that is context. The test hated context. Tests always do. Context ruins clean numbers, but your life is mostly context. That's why the number looked wrong. They tested everyone who survived the same kind of thing, not the exact same story. No two hells are identical, but the same basic pressure: betrayal, control, humiliation, loss, isolation, being made to doubt your own memory, being told you were too much, then punished when you became less available, being expected to keep loving people who kept turning love into leverage. Most people came out carrying one dominant survival strategy: fight everybody, trust nobody, need constant reassurance, disappear before anyone can leave, stay too long because leaving feels like death. And you had pieces of all of them, but none of them owned you completely. That's the outlier. Not that you escaped damage. That would be fantasy. The outlier is that the damage failed to become your entire personality. You can still laugh without checking whether the room approves. You can still care without handing over the keys. You can still love without worshiping access. You can still trust, but now trust arrives slowly, wearing work boots, carrying evidence. It has to earn its way in. Good. The old version of trust walked through the front door because someone smiled correctly. That version almost got you killed inside, not physically, worse in some ways. It nearly killed your ability to recognize yourself. You know that feeling, looking at your own behavior and thinking, why am I acting like this? Why am I begging for basic clarity? Why am I explaining something obvious for the 6th time? Why am I frightened of disappointing someone who disappoints me without losing sleep? That moment is darker than any argument. Because for a second, you see what staying has turned you into. That is usually when the real exit begins. Not when you pack the bag. Not when you block the number, when you look at yourself and realize you have become a full-time employee in someone else's emotional economy.
It's like pieces of glass in my head all the time.
Always monitoring, always adjusting, always translating, always trying to prevent the next collapse. And somewhere under all that labor, your actual life is waiting, quietly, like a dog outside a closed store, still loyal, still there. That image stayed with you, your life waiting for you. So eventually you went back to it. That is the part nobody in the room understood when they saw your test. They thought survival meant enduring more. You learned survival could mean ending the experiment. They thought strength meant staying functional under impossible pressure. You learned strength can also mean refusing to volunteer for another round. They thought healing would make you easier. It made you clearer. And clear people are terrifying to systems built on confusion, because confusion is where manipulation eats. Keep someone unsure, and they will ask for permission. Keep them doubting themselves, and they will outsource judgment. Keep them emotionally flooded, and they will accept almost any explanation that promises relief. But what happens when someone has already lived through the flood? What happens when the water rises and they recognize the smell? They stop arguing with the rain. They move the furniture, they leave. That's you now. Not fearless, prepared, not invulnerable, experienced, not cold, precise. The difference matters. The room eventually figured that out. One of them looked at the scores and said the test must be flawed. That's the first thing people say when a human being refuses to match the theory. Maybe the questions were badly weighted. Maybe the sample was too small. Maybe something was entered incorrectly, so they checked everything. Again, same answer. You were still the outlier. Then somebody asked the better question. What if the test is measuring the wrong thing? There it is. Because they were measuring symptoms. They were measuring what pain left behind. They were not measuring what you built with it. There is a difference between scar tissue and structure. Scar tissue closes a wound. Structure holds weight. You did both. You closed enough of the wound to stop bleeding on people who never cut you. Then you built something around the lesson. Boundaries, taste, patience, a smaller circle, a better nose for bullshit, a quieter life, a stronger appetite for peace. None of those things look impressive on paper, but put pressure on them. They hold. That's why your results stayed strange. The test could detect what happened to you. It could not detect what you decided it was allowed to become. That's the darkest part of survival. At some point, pain stops asking permission. It enters, breaks things, moves furniture, leaves blood on the floor. You don't get to choose that part. But later, much later, when the room is quiet again, there is one choice left. What gets rebuilt in the same place? Some people rebuild the prison, same walls, different person. Same fear, different relationship. Same hunger to be chosen by someone who keeps making them audition. You almost did, maybe more than once. That's not shameful. Patterns feel like home before they feel like patterns. But eventually you noticed, and once you noticed, you could not unsee it. That is why some people from your past say you've changed. They are correct. They just say it like a crime. You've changed, yes. The old you would explain, the old you would wait, the old you would accept the apology because the apology sounded sincere, the old you would confuse potential with evidence, the old you would give someone 12 chances and call it compassion. That person was kind. That person was also exhausted. You didn't kill that version of yourself. You stopped sending them into rooms without armor. There is a difference. You kept the heart. You changed the access. You kept the empathy. You changed the standards. You kept the ability to love. You removed the belief that love requires self-erasure. That's why the outlier result isn't glamorous. It's actually inconvenient. You feel things deeply, but you recover differently now. You can miss someone without returning. You can understand someone's trauma without volunteering to become its target. You can see why they became who they became and still decide they don't get to practice being that person on you. That is emotional maturity with teeth, not the soft poster version, the real one. The version that gets called selfish by people who are feeding on your lack of boundaries. The version that gets called cold by people who only liked your warmth when it was free. The version that gets called changed by people who never planned on changing how they treated you. There is one more thing the score could not see. You stopped confusing being needed with being loved. That lesson cost you more than most people will ever know. For years, being useful felt safe. Fix the problem, carry the weight, answer the call, become so necessary that nobody could abandon you without feeling the loss. Then you learn the cruel part. People can need your labor and still fail to love the person doing it. So you stopped auditioning through usefulness. You stopped measuring your worth by how exhausted you were at the end of somebody else's crisis. That changed the number too, because once you no longer need to be indispensable, manipulation loses one of its oldest doors. So yes, the test found an outlier, but not because you were chosen, not because you are above the species, not because pain secretly gave you superpowers. That's cheap. The truth is darker. Pain took things from you, real things, time, trust, sleep. Years you cannot ask for back, versions of yourself you will never meet again. And somehow, after all that theft, it failed to take the final thing. Your ability to decide what happens next. That is the outlier. Everyone expected the past to become your identity. It became information. Everyone expected betrayal to become your religion. It became a boundary. Everyone expected loneliness to make you beg for any form of belonging. It taught you the price of bad company. Everyone expected anger to keep you chained to the people who caused it. Eventually, you got bored of carrying them. That is almost insulting in its simplicity. You got tired, put them down, kept walking, and now the people studying the result are left with a number that does not fit. They can rerun it, they can rename it, they can invent a prettier category. It won't change the basic fact. You went through something that should have made your world smaller. Instead, you became harder to imprison inside one. That doesn't mean nothing can hurt you. Plenty can. It means hurt no longer gets permanent ownership. It visits, it leaves marks, it changes the furniture. Then eventually the door opens and life comes back in. Slowly, messily, without asking whether the chart understands. That's why your result was the only outlier. The test measured what survived. It did not know how to measure what returned. Your humor, your standards, your appetite. Your strange ability to still notice beautiful things after seeing what people are capable of. That should have been gone. It wasn't. Still there, darkened, sharper, yours.